Welcome to the PinLeader podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The PinLeader podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
Welcome to the PinLeader podcast. And today we're going to be talking about artificial intelligence, which has been, again, another topic that has grown in urgency as things have changed over time. So there's one piece that with AI, everyone's trying to figure out is how is it really going to help us, and how do we use it? And can you actually, in some ways, make money from this new world that we're living in with artificial intelligence? There are good and bad components to that, and I know I have a great guest here with me today who works with artificial intelligence every day, and it's Mr. Greg Walker, and he has 25 years experience working in the field of information technology. He's worked for a number of companies, from governmental entities such as Bell Howell, Electronic Data Systems, Apple Computer, and NASA as a contractor. He's held roles in commercial and governmental space, such as software engineer, network engineer, software quality assurance engineer, a systems engineer, and a senior systems administrator. He has a bachelor's of science in computer science from Cleveland State and Programming Systems Institute. So I'd like to welcome to the show Mr. Greg Walker. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Shanda. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So the first question about artificial intelligence, again, as we're trying to grapple with what this is and how it's going to impact our lives, is, I've had individuals who ask, well, do you use artificial intelligence? And say, well, do I? I probably do, and I don't even know it. Can you talk a little bit about what you're seeing in artificial intelligence and even how you're using it?
I'll go back and talk about what I call the waves of technology. And I think we're in a very sophisticated wave now of technology, that AI is the product that I think is going to improve life for mankind. I think one of the first waves since I've been around was what they call the atomic age, where man split the atom and we unleashed the power of the atom. The second wave since I've been around is the internet wave, where the internet became a commercial entity and it became a worldwide resource for people to share information. I think this is a third wave, which is AI, which is going to be embedded in practically everything we interact with. And of course, with all these waves that I've mentioned, there's good and bad to them. The atomic age gave us the H-bomb. The internet gave us online porn and things of that sort. And AI has its downsides, which we could discuss also. So there's good and bad to these technologies. What humans have to do is apply these powerful technologies to constructive purpose. And that's where I feel that we really need to concentrate on doing that, and also eliminate some of the downsides of AI. So basically, go ahead.
No, so you're talking about taking a leadership, that as humankind, we need to take a leadership position in how to managing artificial intelligence.
Correct. We have to proceed intelligently in applying this technology because it's so powerful, and it probably will affect all of our lives. And getting back to AI, probably the majority of users listening to this podcast probably interact with AI and they don't even realize it. When you call for your bank statement, you may get a AI generated voice menu. You may get a AI generated chatbot when you interact with a support line for your banking or anything basically. So AI is embedded in devices an example of that would be some of the security devices we use at NASA has basic AI embedded in it, what they call machine learning. What machine learning is a subset of AI as a whole. And what machine learning does basically, it basically can simulate the human reasoning when there's an example would be a security device that detects anomalies and can learn from and categorize anomalies moving forward in the future. So that security device can react to hacking attempts, and this technology is embedded in these devices. Another thing we could use AI, or we do use AI with, is, like, as I said before, we have AI generated chat bots that interact with outside customers at NASA. So some of our vendors that supply us with material for support, we have AI generated chatbots. Also, we work with programming and generate programming languages or programs from AI generated code. So basically, you have what they call software writing other software.
So that's
So
interesting. So you've got artificial intelligence writing for and developing other artificial intelligence. Is that right?
correct. Yes, or artificial intelligence doing what they call code reviews. You could have a developer writing some code, and to check it, to validate it, an AI generated system could check the code. So what AI basically is trying to simulate is human thought and human reasoning, and machine learning and what they call deep learning are subsets of AI as a whole. We're really at the beginning of AI, because the ultimate goal of AI is to equal or exceed the capabilities of the human mind, which is right now the most complex organism in the universe.
Well,
So,
that's interesting that you say that, because that's not what I thought the original goal of AI was to do. Originally, what I heard AI was supposed to do, what I was reading, is that it was supposed to help humankind with tasks that would be at a level where it would take up time. They basically would be part of helping us complete our day, to help generate more time for us to be free to be able to create and be more innovative. But what I'm hearing you say is not necessarily the goal of AI is to go beyond what the human mind can do ultimately. And it's not really about helping the human mind. Is that what I'm hearing? Because that's
I
what
would
it sounds
I,
like.
I would say it's more to assist the human, but again, we talk about the downsides. Is it deterministic if humans decide they have this AI system where they turn over ultimate authority to the AI system to make decisions, and the humans rely on that decision without any input?
Mm.
So it is a quandary that that you have to think about, because I don't know if you ever saw the movie The Forbin Project. It was basically, and it was a movie made in the early 70s about a computer system. And basically, this computer system was a forerunner of AI. Basically, in the movie, it simulated AI.
Mm-hmm.
And what the United States did in this movie was basically turn over all of its defenses to this computer.
Yes.
So the computer controlled the nuclear codes, it could launch missiles, and the reasoning they gave for doing that is that AI could determine threats at a faster pace than a human.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the computer basically, man was subjugated by the computer
And that
with
sounds like
AI.
that's the beginning of the Terminator series and a number of
Right.
other, another,
Yes.
more of a doomsday situation where the artificial intelligence says, you know, I don't think you can really run the world because you're the threat. And I've seen movies like that where humankind becomes the threat and the computers think that they can do it better and save the planet. I would think on a not so much as a futuristic of what that could happen, because again, very viable if you did turn over the capability of bombs. But if you're just turning over as simple as an email to be written by artificial intelligence, which I know there are groups of individuals that have, they don't have the time to write the email, it's long, and they ask chat to go ahead and chat GPT to go ahead and do that for them because it saves them time. You use this AI on in a number of different ways. You're probably one of the most integrated with AI that I know, and plus, of course, being a systems engineer and administrator, you can see it even more on the back end than most. Do you see a danger in turning over the just having people they're no longer writing their own emails, but letting the chat do it for them?
Well, probably not specifically emails, although you have to think about this. If AI is generating emails in care of a person, could AI be put to use to basically write an email where the person really has no idea? In other words, they're impersonating the person, and
Uh-huh.
it's sending emails out saying, sends an email to their stockbroker saying, I want to buy this cryptocurrency,
Mm-hmm.
or I want to do this. And the person's not aware that the AI system is generating an email using their digital signature to basically move money to these offshore accounts of somebody else. So there's a downside to AI. And we have to really be thoughtful on the applications of AI. I'm going to give another example as in the Tesla car. Tesla has this automated driving system, and I was reading about this. So the Tesla basically has an AI system built in where it's getting inputs from all the sensors of the car, from the cameras, from sonic sensors, RF sensors of where, radar, where it knows how far in front of it is another car is behind it. It knows objects that are in the street so it can apply the brakes. A person who was basically taking a look at this AI system on the Tesla, he was thinking, or I think this actually was a problem they presented, that say you're driving your Tesla and the Tesla has built in saying, okay, avoid all objects. If you see an object in the road, apply your brakes or swerve to avoid the object. Well, they presented this AI system where, you have a child in the street and you have a deer in the street.
Mm.
So there's two objects in the street. The Tesla is supposed to swerve. Which, in that AI system, which object would the Tesla avoid hitting? The child or the deer? There's no way of avoiding the accident. So the AI system has to be intelligent enough to rank the child is more valuable than the deer or an animal.
It's interesting
But
you
in
say
that
that
case,
because that could be that could make a lot of it with decisions making that we hadn't even thought of.
so I think what was happening is when the car was basically made a decision to what object was the closest and to basically swerve around that. So if the child happened to be the closest object, it would swerve around that. But if the deer was the closest object, it would swerve around that and hit the
Horrible.
child.
That's it. That is where, and that's where you're saying again where it could play a part. I read an article. It wasn't quite with this kind of description, but it was in Time magazine not too long ago. I think just a month or two ago, where there was a discussion about all that data being captured from spatial, from the spatial world, and then
Yes,
how all of the data is also being captured. So there's one group that owns that, right? Tesla and those that have Teslas, they're gathering that information. But then there's
right.
another group that's gathering information through your Alexas and your Siris. And so that's more of the thinking part. So if you combine both of those, of the spatial along with the thinking, now you can have AI walking around amongst us, not necessarily in virtual, but in very much walking around because now it can be placed in some type of holding body because it's figured out space and it's figured out how to think.
Yes, that's correct. And AI is applied in sometimes life and death situations. I actually worked for a company for a short time that they were making software that basically had a protocol for drug interactions and a protocol to identify if a patient dies of sepsis.
Mm.
Well, the drug interaction, AI would examine what drugs the person's taking, and what AI can do is go through and identify interactions, basically list interactions and possibilities with these combination of drugs the patient's taking. And this will all depend on the race of the person, gender, uh, height, weight. All these inputs would go into before a decision is made. The output would basically be here. This patient would be, could possibly be allergic or have a reaction because they're taking these multiple drugs. So that's a positive aspect of AI in the health industry.
Yes, I was going to say, now wait a minute. You just said it's something about biases. That could be with whatever the input is, right?
That is absolutely correct, because a lot of times minorities aren't, the data is not captured for minority patients that are in studies of drug interactions, because we do know different races of people have different metabolisms, they metabolize things differently, and they're not as much in the studies of new medicines as the majority of the population. So if the data is not there, then AI cannot make the decisions. It can only make decisions on the data that's presented. Now, what they can do is you can have an AI system that can learn, but again, they would have to encounter a minority person with a drug interaction, and if there's an interaction, it would have to learn that and say for the future, basically, maybe we don't recommend this drug, or going forward. But what AI is basically looking at is doing a statistical analysis. But if you're not having minority groups in these studies, you won't have the statistical data for AI to act upon.
So that's just take a reflection on that for a moment. You're talking about health. Some of the basics that I'm noticing with using AI, they're not actually even dealing with health, but they're just asking questions like, who is the most beautiful? What does the most beautiful person in the world look like? And what's interesting, we ran this as a test not too long ago, and the results are very telling because it's all about AI pulling information from the internet and from resources from where things are programmed, which might lean toward one group or another. And so now you have this AI doing its best, right? Artificial intelligence doing its best on information that's programmed or it's out there it gives you an answer based on what it knows. I used Chat GPT just to ask some few questions of it. And I noticed that every time it would say back to me, like I would ask just basic questions, and it would say, did I answer your question? How was it? And it would put an exclamation mark at the end of its sentence, which is it was every one or two sentences it would respond back. And I thought that was odd because the exclamation mark reflects a bias of being emotional response, like excitement. Okay, that's what it's supposed to be, right? So I write back to the artificial intelligence and I say, are you emotional? And the chat came back and said, no, I'm not emotional. I'm not human. I'm a artificial intelligence, and it explains itself, right? So I say back to it, I said, well, if you're not emotional, you don't have emotions, why do you keep giving me exclamation marks at the end of your sentences to me? And it comes back to me, which was surprising, and says, you're right. I shouldn't be using exclamation marks. And since that doesn't make you happy, I will stop using it. And within the next few sentences, it stopped using exclamation marks when it answered me back, all because it recognized it may have a problem with understanding emotional response. Because I said, if you use an exclamation mark, you're meaning emotion. So this tells me that if people really wanted to, on biases, whatever those biases are, if you really wanted to get artificial intelligence to address not having a bias, you could go in and start to get global majority individuals input with their health information, because a minority in one country is a majority in another, right?
Correct.
So yeah, so I want to get your thoughts on that.
Well, that's absolutely right. What that was an example of what they call machine learning. It's actually learning and examining in response your input. Basically, you were asking a question, and based upon your question, it learned basically not to use at least with you moving forward, to use the explanation point, because it did basically reason, or what I call reasoning, so like similar to human thought. So it's pretty interesting that it did that. Um, Another thing was I going to say, what a lot of AI, basic AI is doing is what I think I refer back to as statistical analysis. The one caveat you got to remember there is, what they did was they had some experiments. They had AI said, "What? Show me your average nuclear physicist." Well, it showed a white person with German ancestry, and they made up this person, what they would look like. So what the AI is doing is statistical analysis of saying, oh, there's more, maybe there's more people of German origin, or
Mm-hmm.
the Caucasian race that are physicists, and also men, and it came up with an answer. What AI didn't do, if they look just statistics, it may not examine the reason why these statistics are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole gambit of reasons why you may not have more minorities or women as nuclear physicists, but AI doesn't look at that because it's not fed the reasons why statistics are what they are.
Well, how they reason
And
it
people
out
have to be aware of that,
and reason it out. So,
especially in the criminal justice system with facial recognition and things of that sort. There's been mistakes made with using AI for facial recognition that a person, and remember, the cues that it looks at for facial recognition, there could be people that have those same cues,
mm-hmm.
Same race, same cues, same shape of ear, and there have been mistakes. So the humans should not rely exclusively, especially in those kind of situations, on artificial intelligence making the final decision whether somebody is guilty of a crime or arrested for a crime, without some kind of check or balance.
For the human insertion there of reasoning it out.
Correct.
So here's for leaders that are listening again, focus on those that are using AI as potentially as part of their team, as they might see it's like, well, I use this as every day, so I hear both the positives and negatives, the challenges. What do you advise in the few minutes we have left here? What do you advise concerning leaders to how they would go about incorporating AI uh, effectively into their teams?
Well, it depends, what field they're in. I would say get a book. There's a book called AI for Dummies. I
Okay.
would get that book and I would read it. It would give you an overall view what exactly AI is. I mean, like I said, there's different subsets of AI. There's something called deep learning, machine learning, and I would be familiar with those terms and understand what they mean. And from understanding that, if you're running a business, maybe you would set up a system that handles customers' inquiries automatically through the web, with an intelligent chat bot. If you're in research or government, you would have a bot that goes. And when I say bot, that's an automated system that goes out and searches the web for information, for research, categorizes it. There's many things you have to understand first what AI is and what its capabilities are, and then you would apply that to whatever field you're in. So I think a leader needs to, at a high level, be aware of exactly what it is. Like you were mentioning Chat GPT, I would experiment with that. Maybe that, because Chat GPT is also is run by the OpenAI group, and they provide a paid for API. And what an API stands for is an application programming interface, where you can write software and your custom software can basically use their API. In other words, it can interface with their backend and make calls to their system,
Mm.
where you, just like Chat GPT, you type some inputs. Well, your software can basically input data into that API and pull back responses through that into your custom
That's
software.
amazing. So that's how you're making sense of AI right there, making sense as in could be helpful to your business, as long as you know how to manage it, is what you're saying. So do your research is what you're advising.
Correct, and that's why I recommend the AI for Dummies, or a book, or just there's plenty of videos on YouTube. There's also courses, free courses online, and there's paid for courses. I believe MIT offers non-graduate courses for AI that you can take. There's lectures on it. There's multiple resources out there to get a high level understanding of what the capabilities and what exactly AI is.
That's excellent. I can't thank you enough for coming on and talking about this area, because it's a growing area, more to come as it evolves, as the leadership, even the leadership that's in these different areas changes. It comes and goes, or again, as they become more innovative, or when they start collaborating with other systems. I would also advise, keeping your eye out on how the relationships between some of the companies are occurring, because like you mentioned, Tesla, and I know Microsoft is working on OpenAI. There's a number of players that sometimes some of them work collaboratively together, and depending on the day of the week, not so much. And so it also has a play and an impact on the innovation of AI and how fast it moves. So I want to say thank you again for being on the show. Thank you so much, Greg.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Excellent. So as always, remember to stay on topic. Hopefully you're sharpening your mind from all of this information we're providing and becoming more aware of the pluses and minuses of AI. And until next time.
The PinLeader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Mays & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the PinLeader podcast and share with others.